Greetings, everyone. This is Matt Faiello, Technical Marketing Engineer with the Cisco Cloud Networking Compute Business Unit. And since I've already had the pleasure of presenting to you at Cisco Live and promised you a very encompassing demonstration that's pre-recorded, this is, in fact, the demo, and it will be a demo build sequence. So we'll start off with like orgs and resource groups, and then morph into a shared environment, etc. So I hope you get value out of this. We'll keep it rather simplistic. Understand it's not a full production environment, but I'm trying to communicate the principles of these technologies that's part of Intersight, these capabilities, so it easily is understood and then can be expanded and used in your particular environment, in your particular use case. So with that, let's move on to the agenda. Okay, so this is our agenda for the demonstrations. We're going to start off with Intersight organizations and resource groups. Then we're going to build upon that and create a shared org model in Intersight Managed Mode. Then we're going to introduce RBAC to that shared org model. We're going to discuss cloning across organizations. And then I'm going to provide you URL and QR codes to a separate video recording that's all about LAN and SAN connectivity policies. 4 different use cases, a really long video, but it's got all the detail, all the good stuff there. And then we're going to show transitioning from a standalone org model to a shared org model. And then finally, we're going to talk about domain profiles and chassis profile templates. I put this graphic together to serve as a visual plan of how we're going to build these successive demos. So first things first, you can see that there are 3 colored boxes. Those are 3 organizations. And we're going to build those organizations initially as regular organizations, siloed organizations. I am going to add a resource group to the tprod org A at the bottom there. I'm going to add hardware to that. And then I'm going to leave the top 2 without a resource group assigned. That will assist in the next phase when we go to sharing. And we're going to refer to this graphic several times, so you'll see it more than once. So here we are for the first demo in an Intersight account. This demo will create 3 normal organizations in a resource group and add the 1 resource group to one of the organizations. I am an account administrator, so I have full privileges within this account. Let's go to organizations. As you can see, we just have our default organization. We're going to create 3 new ones. And sticking with the naming convention that's on the graphic, click Next. Click Create. Create the second organization. And then the final organization. Okay, so there's our 3 organizations. Notice I did not enable sharing for any of these 3 organizations initially, nor did I add a resource group to any of these 3 organizations. So that brings us to resource groups. Okay, we just have the default resource group. If we go to targets, we don't even see any targets here. Okay, so there's nothing to add to a resource group. So with that, let's claim a new target. And it's going to be UCS domain, Intersight Managed Mode. So we need the device ID and the claim code. So here is my device console. So I've got a healthy connectivity from the device connector in the device console to Intersight. Yellow means I can reach Intersight SAS, but I I'm not claimed. So let's go ahead and grab the device ID, which is just the two serial numbers of the fabric interconnects with an ampersand in the middle. And let's go ahead and provide that. And then we're going to need the claim code. And notice I have the option to go ahead and select a resource group. I don't have to do that to claim, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to put this domain, claim it into the default resource group. So let's click claim. Okay, so it looks like we're successfully claimed. Let's go back to the resource group, and we just have default, and we can see that we have a target there now. We have a domain that's added to that resource group. Okay, so I actually want to create a new resource group. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this T prod resource group. Okay, now I'm going to do a custom membership here. I don't want to add like everything that has been claimed to my account to that particular resource group. So I'll do custom as it turns out. I only have one thing claimed. Okay, but in a larger account with more targets claimed, then you're going to have a bunch of things here in all that you can claim. So I'm going to do custom. That means I have to pick and choose what I want to claim to that resource group. Okay, so I'm going to add the newly claimed UCS domain to that resource group. Click create. Okay, so that's fine. But since I added to the default upon initial claim, okay, I'm still a member of that domain is still a member of two resource groups. I really don't want that because I want to segment as much as possible to a particular org, to a particular resource group that's part of that org. So what I'm going to do is now that that domain has been claimed and added to its own resource group, I'm going to go in here to default, okay, and I'm going to deselect uh, the membership here of that domain to the default uh, resource group, and I'm going to click save. Okay, so now you can see that I'm just a member of the actual newly created resource group, and that's exactly how I wanted it to be. Now, we've set up the initial the initial organizational resource group set up for this demonstration in this particular part. And as we get ready to transition to the next part of the demo where we start doing sharing with the organizations in the interim, what you're not going to see is I'm going to create some policy objects, some pools, policies, templates. Not doing the whole entire configuration, but I want some objects that we can see, we can visualize, and we can see how the sharing works and all that. Okay, so I'll come back with the next phase of the demonstration with a few of the policy objects already created. And as a lead in to the sharing demonstration, I just want to flash this graphic again because this is our model, this is our use case that we're working with for this scenario. Okay, so we're in our second demo here, and we'll actually be talking about enabling sharing on several of the orgs that we created in the prior demo. So just a level set, we did create those three standalone siloed orgs. that you see here, and we also created our resource group in which we um, attached, joined our UCS IMM domain to. If I click into each org, okay, I get a nice summary here. This will be real handy because it helps you to understand the affiliation of the objects to the org. This will especially come in handy if you should have to undo something or delete something. You can see what resources that are going to be part of that organization. Okay, because you can't just delete an org, you have to delete the resources in the org, then delete the org, right? You can't delete policies that are being used by server profile templates and server profiles. You have to delete the server profiles, delete the server profile template to free up the policy so there's no usage, and then delete the policy. So it's a very much sequential backward working exercise, right? When you try to undo shared org infrastructure. So this will become handy. I can click here. I can see that I have 4 policies created here, right? And I can hit the back button. And I can see that those policies were domain policies, and then this is my domain profile template that's using those policies, right? And if I go back to organizations, I can drill in. And as we share, you'll see entities show up here, shared with column. And then as the next block that we talk about, the next demo, is actually where we do the RBAC, the user roles. And those will fill in as we assign those roles to the shared orgs. And let's go to infrastructure service and policies. Okay, so this is all my policies, but I like to set up some custom views here. So I'm always using this. I'm always creating a custom view. And what I've done is I've just set up a filter, and I've filtered on the org since I have a server org with server policies. And I also have a domain org with domain policies. So, it's not that we're dealing with that many policies in this particular demonstration, but you end up getting dozens and hundreds of policies in a large infrastructure. All right, you have to kind of make sense out of it. So these custom filtered views, I know help me a lot. So if you're not using those, I encourage to explore that. Also, just a a tidbit here. Organization here is not enabled by default, so you can go here and make sure that your organization is highlighted. You probably want to see that. At least I do. Okay. Again, helps me make sense out of that. I can see my server policies are in the server org. My domain policies are in my network or domain org. So let's go back to system and organizations. And in keeping with our graphic um, that we created, um, and also my naming convention is obvious. I'm going to enable sharing on the network org and on the server org. So I'm going to go in there and select the network org and edit. And here's where I enable sharing. I click next, and now I get a screen that I didn't get before. And it says, what are the organizations that you want to share with? Okay, so in my case, this target production org A is what I want to share with. And I'm going to click next, kind of a summary, and then save. And yes. Okay, and as you can see, we filled in the shared with column here with the org that we are sharing with, the target org. So this is the shared org, the source org. This is the what you're putting resources to share out, and then this is the destination or the target org. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that with the server org. enable sharing, click next, selecting the same target org in my use case, and click save. All right, so we've got both of those taken care of. Okay, so now that we've shared with the target org, our two shared orgs, the network and server org, and again, this usage will fill in as we get ready to explore the next demo, in which case we talk about role-based access control. So we're going to assign roles to these orgs because these orgs are shared, but there's no access. Okay, I have access universally because I'm signed in, okay, as an account administrator, which I have to be to create these shared orgs, by the way, as it stands right now. And we're going to enhance RBAC in the future. Okay, so we'll have more capabilities there. But right now, to set up this shared org infrastructure, you have to be the account administrator. Okay, so I'll see you back in the next demonstration. Okay, so back to our graphic here and talking about role-based access control in our scenario. So we have a target prod org down here in blue. We're going to add two roles. We're going to add a domain admin role, and then we're going to assign that to a user, and then create a server admin role and assign that to a user. Now, those two users will also need read access to their respective shared orgs up here in orange and in green. Okay, so that's really important because anything that we create here, if you don't give this user down here at least read access, they're not going to see those resources that get created in the shared orgs. So with that, let's move on to the third demo. Okay, so we're back in Intersight for the demonstration, and we're done with orgs creation and sharing, but now we're going to go to our RBAC user roles. And these are the system-defined roles, so they're already there, but we're going to create a couple new custom roles. So we're going to create a role, and we're going to give it a meaningful name. Click Next. Now, we don't want this role to be assigned to all orgs. We're going to be org specific for segmentation. So we're going to click on the organization radio button there. And now we get to choose the org. Okay, and the target org is where I want this role to be a UCS domain administrator in the target org, destination org. And then in turn, so that this user role can see resources that have been shared from the shared org, I need to add in the appropriate shared org with read privilege, read only. So this is how you want to set up your prototypical org sharing between two orgs. And then click create. Okay, so we have our first role. We're going to go ahead and create the second role. And once again, we're going to be org specific. We're going to select the target org for this user role, and I want them to be a server admin. But in turn, they need to have read access to the shared org to get the resources, the policies, server profile template. And click create. All right, so we have our two custom roles. Okay, so now we need to go to our users, and here I am as the account administrator, but I'm going to add in a couple new users that correspond to those two roles that I created in the target organization. So there's my Bravo 26 domain admin role. And then I'm going to add in my Bravo 26 user admin role and then click save. Once I've completed that, I like to refresh the screen. And now in my pull down, I can switch account or role. And I see that Matt-Cisco Live 2024, I was just the account administrator, but now I have the domain admin user with corresponding role and the Bravo 26 server admin user that coincides with the server admin role. So let's pick the domain admin. And of course, I'm greatly limited now. I don't have full visibility of everything. Okay, so we're going to go to infrastructure service. Okay, and then go to my policies. And there's my domain policies. If I want to create a policy, notice I'm filtered down. I'm a domain admin. I only have access to the domain policies. I don't have access to any other type of policy. And if I go to my templates, don't see any server profile templates, no VNIC templates. But if I go to my domain profile template, there it is. That was created in the shared org. And if I try to edit that guy, I'm not allowed. I only have read access to this object. But what I can do is I can derive my actual domain profile from template, okay, and go through this sequence of events. Here, let me back up here. Notice the target org. I'm locked into that target org. So I can create my domain profile from the template, okay, and then assign it to the domain that's in the target org as part of that resource group. So let's go ahead and switch over to the server side. So now I'm a server admin in that target org. And let's go to, this time go to pools, because I have a couple pools out there. The Mac pool and UUID pool were created in the server org, shared org. As far as policies go, I got a few more policies. I got my server policies out there. As far as templates go, no domain profile template access, but I've got my VNIC template out there, and I have my server profile template. So again, if I try to edit this guy, I'm not allowed. It's forbidden. I only have read access to what was created in the shared org, but I can derive my my server profiles from template and then subsequently assign to the servers that are in that target org. That's part of that resource group. Okay, so that completes the demonstrations that are catered to org creation, resource group creation, shared org configuration with appropriate role-based access control. And now we'll move on to the next demo section, which is the LAN and SAN connectivity policies. As I alluded in the presentation at Cisco Live, and also when I went over the agenda at the beginning of this video, I said that the LAN and SAN connectivity policy demonstration video is actually a separate video. Reason for that is it's pretty long. I go over these 4 use cases. It's the better part of an hour, and it would just simply make this video just way too long. So please scan the QR code here. If you have the actual slides, feel free to grab the link there. Certainly can do a search on Intersight LAN and say connectivity policies on YouTube, and you can find this video. It's very in depth. First use case is simple auto VNIC placement using a VIC 14425 MLOM. The second one, a little bit more, is manual VNIC configuration with simple placement. Okay. The third use case is manual VNIC and VHBA configuration with advanced placement. And then finally, the fourth one is manual VNIC and VHBA configuration with advanced placement, okay, using two adapters, the VIC 1440 MLOM and the VIC 1480. In this next demonstration, we're going to talk about cloning, policy cloning across organizations. So a likely scenario is, since we've been talking about shared organizations, and in the next section we're going to talk about transitioning from a siloed organizational model to a more efficient shared organization model. You're likely going to be using this cloning functionality. It will greatly assist you in being able to move policies from one place to another. So that's kind of the lead in for this scenario. We've got a couple siloed orgs, T-org A, T-org B, okay, completely separate from each other. They're just normal standalone orgs. And of course, they have the domain policies, domain profiles, server policies, server profiles. But let's say we want to stand up a new organization, T-org C. And right now it's going to be siloed, but we could easily transition and morph that into a shared org. Okay, so we're going to be going over in this demonstration the cloning functionality of how we can quickly and easily move policies from either one of these siloed orgs, A or B, into the new org that we've created, C. We're now back into Intersight, and I brought you to system settings here because if we go down to organizations, you can see that I've created that third organization from the slide, T-org-C, and that's just a standalone org, and there's no sharing, there's no resource groups attached to it. But let's go back to infrastructure service and go to policies. And of course, I created a filter for my org A policies and my org B policies. I've created one here for org C, nothing there yet. So let's start getting a policy moved over to org C. Again, I want to stand up org C. I want to leverage work I've done elsewhere, and cloning is a perfect way to do that. So let me go to org B. And let me select my domain VLANs policy as part of my domain profile. So let's go in and take a look at that. Let's edit that and go forward. And you can see I've got, it's simple. I got a VLAN in here. But what I wanted to point out is the fact that we do have an embedded policy here. Okay, so if I clone this VLAN policy, it will leverage deep cloning because we have an embedded multicast policy that's part of that VLAN that we have added. All right, so that's what I wanted to point out. If I cancel out of that and I go to this policy and I go to clone, first of all, it's going to ask me what my name is for the clone. Now, I don't wish to keep that clone designation, and I wish for it to be named in the org C. And in my pull down, then I'll have org C. I'm an account administrator, so I'm seeing everything. Okay, but then I want to show you this attached policy and pool behavior. Okay, so basically this first radio button, which is default, says if there's a policy, one of the embedded policies, if it exists in the destination org and it's got the same exact name of the one that's embedded that you're cloning the parent policy, then it's going to take on that new policy. And that destination policy that's pre-existing, it might have different settings. So I want to alert you to that. Now, obviously, in our scenario, we're standing up a brand new org, so it's not like anything exists out there in org C. So we're not worried about that. But I do want you to become aware of that. And then the second radio button, which is not default, says, "Hey, just clone everything embedded over to the new org, and then, oh, by the way, you know, give it a suffix, and then that will be used in that parent policy that was cloned." I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this is all about the embedded policies. Okay, and of course, pools IDs don't get copied over. We don't want to get into a situation where we got duplicate IDs, okay, in amongst orgs. All right, so you're going to basically just be cloning the pool name over, okay, and then you'll have to go into that pool with the destination org and actually put in your scheme, okay, and how many IDs that you want. Okay, so conversely, let's grab a policy that does not have embedded. So let's grab a firmware policy. There's nothing embedded in here. It's just a plain Jane policy with settings. Okay, but you'll notice if you scroll down, okay, there's no mechanism here for deep cloning. That's because there's no embedded policies. So just be aware of that. So let's go back to our domain VLANs policy. Let's select that and let's clone. I'm going to change the name. I'm going to clone that to C. Okay, and I'm going to keep the default behavior. And I'm going to click clone. Okay. And let me refresh. Okay, so if we actually go here, you can see that I've actually got that policy cloned over. All right, but let's go in and edit that policy. Let's go next, and let's look at that multicast policy that's embedded. Notice that it kept the same name. Okay, it kept the same name that was in the org B. So in reality, in production, in a real environment, I wouldn't be attaching org names to policies. The only reason I did that was just to help things coincide with my slideware and showing you and in demonstrating. So hopefully these principles make sense, okay? But in actuality, I wouldn't want to be putting org designations on things when I'm potentially cloning back and forth, okay? Because I don't want to have to go in and it's very confusing. We're in org C, but yet there's a name here that says org B. Now I can go change that. It's very easy. You can edit and change names in policies, but I don't want to have to do that. So just be aware of that. And that completes the demonstration here about cloning across organizations. In this demonstration, we're going to build upon the cloning that we did prior and introduce that in deep cloning. We're going to talk about how we get from a siloed org structure, okay, to a shared org model that's more efficient. Okay, again, um, you probably wouldn't worry maybe about this if you just had a couple orgs, but in our model here, we just have org A and org B. But what if we had a dozen of these orgs and it had the same firmware policy to each and every org? Well, I had to create that policy 12 times. And if I periodically update my firmware, then I have to go in and edit those policies each and every time. So that's just not very efficient. So that's the beauty of the org model. That's the beauty of IMM and Intersight. And we're going to try to show that to you on a reduced scale. So let's talk about this siloed org structure, and let's morph this into a shared org structure. In this next slide, we've introduced a third org, and we've indeed shared it. That is the blue org, and we've shared that down with our two target orgs, org A and org B. So now we can start using cloning, and we can clone our domain policies if we wish from the target orgs up to the shared org. Many of those likely will be the same. And then we can create a domain profile template up here in the shared org. And then once we have that, then we can simply take our domain profiles and we can bind them to the template in the shared org. So that's more of a way that you can step into this from a transition standpoint. Now, if you're creating net new, you can just create everything in the shared org, of course, and then derive down the domain profiles from the template, which remains in the shared org. So we're kind of in this model, in this particular use case, we're kind of desiring to control everything from the shared org. You certainly can keep things down here at the target orgs and keep different administrators in charge of those with RBAC accordingly. Now on the server side, we can start cloning things up to the shared org. We might want to combine some of these UUID or MAC pools and have different blocks, and we can certainly do that. Now, the IDs are not going to clone up, so you can't clone an org outright. If an org is embedded in a like a LAN connectivity policy for MAC addresses, then it gets cloned up by shell only, by name only. You still have to fill in the IDs. So with that, you start walking these policies in. And the reason I selected firmware policy is if you want to kind of crawl, walk, run with this, that's a great policy. A lot of people use firmware policies in server profiles to deploy firmware down to their servers. And you certainly have to periodically edit that policy to update it with a newer version. So it's a great policy in that you can create kind of your shared org firmware policy up here, and then simply go in and edit your server profile templates to point to the shared org. And then as you get comfortable and you create more and more policies up here in the shared org, you may wish to move the template up to the shared org. So that all depends on how you want to do your RBAC and who's going to control what. You might also notice here that we have a resource group on the target org, and it says server. That's because we've just introduced adding servers to resource groups. So I don't have to add the whole entire domain to a resource group and make that part of an org. I can pick and choose which servers in a domain I want to be part of a resource group, which then gets added to the org. So org A has just one server, okay, in the resource group, server 1, whereas org B has servers 2 and servers 3, okay. So you'll see that as we go through the demonstration, and then hopefully this will make more sense. Okay, we're in Intersight once again, and here we are in System and Settings, and let's go over these organizations before we get any deeper into the demonstration. So we're working with a couple target orgs, T-org A, T-org B, and then we have our shared org. Okay, and if I go in and look at the shared org, I can see the policies. I have a domain profile out there as well. And at the bottom there, you can see once again what's being what I'm sharing to. Okay, the two target orgs. Notice the resource groups are RG Server 1, RG Server 2. If you go back to the resource groups, actually, and I start looking at those, you'll notice something new here, and this is only about less than a week old at this point. But you have this sub-target. This is adding servers to resource groups. So this only works with IMM, so you have to be in an FI chassis Intersight IMM setup. Okay, and you can see here that the sub-targets, you got this edit icon. So if I edit that, I don't have to add all servers to the resource group. I can pick and choose which server or servers I want as part of the resource group. So the first one here, I just have the first server. And if I cancel out um, and I cancel here and go to the second resource group, and you can see I'm two of three. So two of the three sub targets are in this resource group. And there's my server two and server three. So if you're picking and choosing, okay, servers into resource groups, if you add in a new server, then it's not automatically going to bump up the sub target. We don't know which resource group it would belong to. Whereas if you have an entire domain in the target, it's going to get added to the entire domain, of course, resource group. So if you do expand out empty slots with additional servers, then you'll have to come in here and divvy those up accordingly by editing your sub targets in the respective org or resource group, rather. Okay, so let's click cancel there. And let's go up here and change to infrastructure service. Okay, so let's go to templates and go to my domain profile template. And I can see I have the shared org domain profile template. So in this scenario, I've already cloned my policies from a target org up to the shared org. I've got them set. Now I've created a domain profile template there. And of course, I could um, derive domain profiles from this template, and I can absolutely drive them down to any of the affiliated target orgs. Okay, but probably more common of a use case is for you to have an actual domain profile in the target org, and here's two domain profiles. Okay, so these domain profiles are bound to the respective domain profile template in their respective orgs, right? Org A, org B. Okay, but once you've successfully transitioned the policies up to the shared org and you've built a domain profile template in the shared org, okay, then you could actually come to that domain profile and you could simply attach it then to the shared org template. Okay, so therefore you're kind of surrendering control over to whoever is going to administer the domain in that shared org. Now I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying that's the flexibility that you have if you wanted to kind of do a power up, if you wanted to turn control over to an administrator at the shared org level. Otherwise, just keep things in their respective orgs. It really depends from customer to customer, and you get the question all the time. Well, what's the best practice? Well, it's kind of hard to have a best practice blanket statement on something like this because there's so many different wants and desires by customers. Um, Everything from keep it simple to, okay, I need to dice everything up as much as I possibly can. So it really entails a discussion, and we'd be happy to engage with you on a discussion to help design this to fit your needs. RBAC is a huge part of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this. All right. Now, from a server point of view, okay, I've actually created a couple additional roles. Okay, so I have a server admin role for each of those target organizations. Okay, and that server admin is actually the server admin for the target org, but they have read-only rights to the shared org, and that is the same on org A and org B. So org B has their server admin, and they have read-only to the shared org. So with that, let's go ahead and switch our account roles. Okay, I was logged in as an account administrator, but let me go down here and do org A server admin. And let's go to infrastructure service. Let's go to servers first. And you can see I have my one and only server that's part of that domain, but I have that one server, 1.1, chassis 1, blade 1, assigned to resource group 1 that's part of org A. Okay, so there you go. We have orgs added to resource groups, and now you can further dice up a domain as you see fit, as opposed to what's been long-standing, and that's adding the entire domain to an org, and therefore people see things perhaps they shouldn't see, or and hopefully not get access to things they shouldn't get access to. Okay, so this will make it much, much, much better, more powerful, more flexible for you to go forward, especially in a managed service provider or a very large enterprise where you have a domain and it's servicing a couple different entities, maybe a couple different customers. Very, very beneficial. Now let's go down here to um, templates. So I have my SP template, okay? And if I go into that SP template that's part of my org A and go forward, okay, I see that I have a firmware policy that's also part of org A, okay, but if I start thinking about transitioning to a shared org model, okay, then again, this is a good candidate policy to start crawling before we walk and we run with shared orgs. Let me go ahead and take away that policy. I'm going to detach it. And because now I'm a server admin at this org A, but I have read access to the shared org, I can select and you'll see I now have access to that shared org firmware. Now, different name, but that does not matter with Intersight managed mode. Okay, the settings will be exactly the same. In other words, I'm pointing to the same server model and same firmware package that's part of that. You can see that here. Okay, so X210C, M7 server, and this is the firmware version. So that's the same for both firmware policies. Okay, so as we do this, this will be completely non-disruptive. Okay, there's no drift detection that will kick in and say you got to redeploy the server profile. Okay, because the settings are the same. Okay, so this is an example how you can start walking in these policies, okay, to transition to a more centralized policy model with shared orgs, okay, therefore making it more efficient, and you have less touch points after you get it set up, and you're not creating multiple policies for different orgs, and you're not having to edit those same policies over and over again. Okay, I'd much rather go to one place for certain policies. I'd rather go to one place, create that policy, have it be consumed by my target orgs. Yet when I need to make a change, I can go to that one policy and make one edit, okay, and not have to go to 10, 12, or more different places, different orgs to make those edits. So hopefully this makes sense, and that concludes our demonstration of transitioning from a siloed org structure to a shared org structure. And just to mention again, we'd be happy to engage with you, get in touch with your account team, get in touch with me, and we can have further in-depth discussions on what you might want to do. All right, so this last demo, and thank you, by the way, for hanging in there with me. We're going to talk a little bit about domain profile templates, chassis profile templates. And I'm not going to really show a slide. We're just going to go straight to Intersight here. And this is as much talk and information sharing as it is to actually do the demo. I know it's not that difficult for seasoned UCS IMM customers to leverage domain profile templates, server profile templates, chassis profile templates. Okay, but I want to share what you can and cannot do today, and then what's coming. So let's go ahead and go down to templates from infrastructure service. And we have some templates here. And of course, we got a template. In this case, it's domain profile templates. We have the domain profile template in our shared org. And then we also have domain profile templates that are left over in the target orgs. So by virtue by virtue of the share, okay, the sharing process between orgs, I can select that domain profile template and I can derive, of course, but because I'm in a shared model between orgs, I can actually derive to a target org. Okay, so, and we talked about that earlier in one of the previous demos. Okay, so that's all well and good. But I also want to address cloning of templates. Okay. I mean, technically, we have cloning of policies, and you can clone a policy from org A to org B today. And there does not have to be a sharing relationship between those two orgs. You can, if you have access to the orgs, you can just clone a policy from silo org A to silo org B all day long. Okay. And that was deliberate to have this cloning mechanism outside of the shared model. Today, as you watch this demonstration or attend Cisco Live, we don't have sharing of, or we don't have cloning of templates. Okay, and I'll come back to that. Okay, but if you're in a shared setup, of course, you can clone, and you can clone that template itself to one of your shared orgs. But here's the point. You're cloning the template, but the policies, the embedded policies still remain in the shared org, the parent org. Okay. So what we would really like, okay, to do is to be able to like deep clone a template, a chassis profile template, a domain profile template, a server profile template, and clone that over to a new org, but also have the deep cloning capability of cloning the policies within, okay, over to the new org. That will be huge and instrumental to building out horizontally, okay. Also, if you're already built out horizontally and you want to start being more efficient and go to a shared org model, we absolutely want to be able to clone templates, deep clone. And again, when I use the word deep, that means embedded objects, right? Embedded policies. So that capability is being worked on, okay? And by the time you watch this video, probably sometime by the end of June 24, maybe into July, first part of July 24, we will have the ability to clone server profile templates. And again, that cloning will be a deep clone and it will be of outside of the share model. In other words, I just want to have a couple siloed orgs and be able to clone from one siloed org to another siloed org. So hopefully that's good news for everyone here. And we're not going to stop there. We're going to prioritize going to production first with server profile templates, and then we'll follow up with domain profile templates and chassis profile templates. And I've also communicated the absolute need of being able to clone VNIC templates and VHBA templates across orgs. Okay, so look for those new capabilities to come very, very soon in the case of server profile templates. And then thereafter, as we're able to get this through development with all the other priorities that we have. And feel free to reach out to the account team or myself personally, and I can shed more light on that as we get closer to those times, right? So I just wanted to share that with everyone. Um, yeah, so technically we don't do cloning of templates today, but if you're in a shared model, you can clone the actual template itself, okay, to a new org, but you're still pointing to the embedded policies in the shared org, right? And so good stuff will be coming, and I hope this was valuable information to you. I know it's instrumental to be able to do this, be able to clone these templates from one org to another, especially if you've been around IMM for a long time and you've already got, more orgs than you care and more policies of the same type that you really care to manage. Okay, and you start leveraging the shared org model where, you can have policy or policies or templates up there that are being consumed and used by many destination orgs. So again, hope this is good stuff for you, and I really appreciate again you hanging in there with me. Thank you.